Hey guys, it's Chris here, and I wanted to take a moment and shout out our newest Patreon member. Huge thank you to Danielle Chavez. Your support really means a lot and helps push me to keep working hard on this podcast and give it the attention and quality it deserves. So to all of you who are fans of the podcast, Patreon is not only a great place to support the show, but also gain access to our episodes completely ad-free for just $1 a month. Check out our higher tiers for more exclusive content made special for the Unnerved community. Try it out, and you can cancel at any time. Visit patreon.com/unnervedpodcast or click the link in the show notes. Your support really goes a long way to keep this podcast going, and I really appreciate it. Enjoy the episode.
I looked up and out the window, and right above was a massive object. It sounds crazy, but it's never been the same after that day.
From HV Studio, this is Unnerved.
Welcome back to the Unnerved Podcast. It's where normal people share their abnormal stories. And if you enjoy true stories, the strange and terrifying, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Chris Fricky.
911, what are you reporting?
Oh, you might ought to have somebody take a look. It's different. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. It's strange.
Have you ever seen something that was a once-in-a-lifetime moment? Something where you just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Something so extraordinary and unique that when you share it with others, their first reaction is to doubt your experience and claim logic over your word. If only they were there, and if only they could have seen and experienced this once-in-a-lifetime moment, then you could truly be validated. In today's story, Jess and his mom shared that validation with each other when they both saw something in the Florida skies that defied their concept of reality. What they experienced that day was a once-in-a-lifetime moment that they would never forget. This is his story.
Hi, my name's Jesse. I live in the Florida Panhandle, and this was roughly 2011. I was with my mom going to my grandfather's house, and it was about, I want to say, 3 o'clock roughly, because I was homeschooled, but there was really heavy traffic, which usually meant school was letting out, and people were on the way to get their kids and stuff. We were right next to, I remember, a Dollar General, and it was at a stop. We were going nowhere. I don't even know why I looked up. I just know it went from, I could hear everyone's engines around, the AC blowing and all that, and suddenly it was like a vacuum in space. It was just silent. I looked up and out the window, and right above the tree lines, I remember it was right above it, was a massive object. And when I say this thing was big, I mean it was the size of our local mall. If you've ever seen Independence Day, it was that kind of patterning on the bottom. I don't even want to say flying, because it was just hovering. And I have a hard time remembering the shape because it was so big. but my mom is able to remember a little bit more. She said it was more of like a hexagon kind of shape, and it was just, like I said, it was just massive. But when I was looking at it, I didn't even feel scared or anything. I honestly felt the calmest I ever felt. It was overly calm. I'm a really anxious person. I even take medication for anxiety and stuff, and it's just in my family, and I've been anxious ever since I was a kid. But in that moment, when I looked up at it, it was just me staring at it, and I didn't feel almost anything, if I'm being honest. It was just me blank staring at it. I looked away from it and looked forward, and then looked back, and it wasn't there, and it was like, in that instant, I could hear everything. The cars running around us, our AC, all that. And I looked to my mom, and she looked completely normal as she did a minute ago, just, staring forward. And so I looked away, and I kind of sat there for a second, and then I looked to her, and I said, "Did you?" And then she just cut me off and was like, "So you saw it too?" And I was like, "Yeah." Was it really big and above the trees? She was like, "Yeah, but let's just go to your grandpa's and let's just not talk about it." Why can't we talk about it? She was like, "I don't want to talk about it because I feel like Men in Black are going to come for us." My mom was a big conspiracy theorist and still is to this day. And, I was just such, I guess, a well-behaved kid or whatever. And I took my mom's word for good. And so when she said, "Don't say anything, someone might come after us," I took that to heart. I was like, "Yep, nope, I'm not saying a thing." I remember we went to my grandfather's house, and, we were kind of off the whole time. He kept asking us what was wrong, because even though we weren't afraid in the moment when we were looking at this thing, we were still unnerved after the fact, because you just saw this massive thing, and no one around us is reacting at all. Traffic just resumed how it was. There was even some people in the parking lot, and I never saw them react or anything. I don't think shared hallucinations is a very common thing. It was so fast. It was at most there for a minute. I remember looking at the dashboard, looking up at it, staring at it for a minute, and then I looked away, and I looked back, and it was gone. It was just that fast. That's why I had to ask my mom, "Did you see that?" Because it was just so fast. I was like, "Am I seeing things?" So when my mom said that she saw something, it was crazy. And by what my mom says with the shape was like a hexagon kind of, not a perfect circle. It had edges to it. It was massive. It was like a football field, to be honest. It was so big that we didn't know how no one saw it too, to the point we were questioning if we were crazy or something. It actually took until I was, I want to say, 13 for my mom to openly talk about with my father and my siblings. And my mom was explaining it to my dad. And I actually didn't watch Independence Day. I had never watched it. And she looks it up on the family computer. And I remember feeling the shock in me, because I was like I was seeing it again, but I wasn't, because it wasn't the same shape. But I was seeing the exact picture of the pattern. The patterns were always stuck with me because it was so metallic. It had really deep grooves in the bottom of it. I tried for so long to search to see if anyone else had seen the same thing, but I haven't found anyone who has seen the same thing. Everyone always sees, either the triangle shape or the circle shape, like a disc, and it was just really wild.
So your mom, is she comfortable talking about it today, or is it like something she doesn't really like talking about? Just it may come up every once in a while.
She will talk about it with me today. Like, I told her I was going to be doing this call because I just felt like I need to tell her because she's a part of it, you know? I even said, do you remember what we saw while going to my grandfather's, you know, back then? And I didn't give specifics just to see if she would know. And she was like, the thing in the sky? Yeah, I remember, you know, because that's a hard thing to forget. Later on down the road, I want to say a week or a month later, my grandfather liked to go out to one of the parks that was around us and sit on the tailgate of his truck and, you know, just look at the stars and talk. And we went out there and met him one day, and he's already sitting on his tailgate and he's watching something really closely. Sometimes it's like a satellite or something, you know, things that are really bright in the sky. And we walk up and we're like, hey, what you looking at? And he goes, do you see what I'm seeing? And he had us sit down next to him, and we look up. He's like, look at those stars. At first, it's just 3 of them. They were just kind of blinking, which is kind of normal because sometimes, you know, like I said, a satellite. And then suddenly, they start moving. And it's like kind of a dance, I want to say. They would like spin around each other, move side to side. And, you know, this was so long ago. We didn't, at the time, we were poor. We didn't have smartphones to take a video of it, you know. So we were just watching these stars dance. They would also sometimes merge together. It would start off as 3 of them, kind of like the triangle formation, you know, and that's where we started joking, oh, it's a UFO. And then suddenly they would start moving, and they would like get next to each other, and they would blink some more, and then they would kind of go in a circle pattern, blink some more, and then they would merge together, and then they'd come back out. Like I said, we only had like flip phones, but even they had cameras. And I remember my grandfather like trying his best to take a picture and trying to like get the zoom to work on that thing. You know, you're clicking that button over and over, and you could see the light bending around the object, but you could tell that it was some kind of object. It wasn't a star, but it was far away enough that it looked like a star. They would merge together, one would come out, and it'd be 2 of them, and they would like dance together, and then it would spit the other one out, and it just did that until like an hour or 2 later of us watching it, it would just disappear. But the thing is, it didn't just stop there.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I remember going to a pond with my brother and his girlfriend. They were sitting down at one dock fishing, and I wasn't really into fishing. You know, you're a kid. You think it's boring to sit there with your pole in the water. You're like, when's something going to bite? I was just laying on the other dock that was like right next to them, watching the sky. And instead of 3, though, it was only 1, and it kept circling us. And I know it wasn't a helicopter or a plane. Like, I really sat there and watched this thing. It was just circling us. It would go in one way, it'd disappear like behind the trees for a while, and then it would come back. And then it'd do the same thing where it'd just sit there and just blink. It didn't make any noise at all. At first I sat there and I was like, what's that helicopter doing? Why is it going, you know, in circles? And then an actual helicopter went by, and I was like, wait, that's not a helicopter. And so I just watched it. And it did the exact same things that the ones that me and my grandfather would watch, except for it was a single one. When I say it's never been the same after that, it sounds crazy, but it's never been the same after that day. I've had so many different weird experiences follow me until this day.
The craft that Jesse and his mom saw that day is something that anyone would have trouble processing. Why was the craft there? Why was there a sense of calm in its presence? And did anyone else see it? These are all questions that we may never have answers to, but Jesse's account does share certain similarities with other reported UFO encounters. A sense of calm isn't always the case for UFO experiencers, but I've noticed that it seems to be a common thread, more specifically with alleged abductees. What exactly causes this feeling is unclear. Jesse also expressed the feeling of time slowing down while looking at this craft, as if a time warp of some kind was in place. And if you recall from a previous episode titled Mystery at Swagger Lake, that was a similar sensation to what Forrest and his friend experienced. In Forrest's case, others theorized that the missing time that he witnessed may be the result of the UFO being capable of using interdimensional or anti-gravity technology, where the time either slips or wraps around the craft, causing space and time itself to go haywire. Now, whether this theory is true or not is clearly speculation at this point. This sighting happened in the populated area of Panama Springs, Florida. So, surely others reported seeing this craft, right? Now, to be fair, this was 13 years ago in 2011. Cell phone cameras were terrible quality, and if it was only there for a moment, not many people may have noticed. Years later, Jesse tried to find similar UFO reports from locals that also may have seen this craft. Unfortunately, Jesse didn't have an exact date of the event, and according to both our efforts, reports in that area during that year were not specifically related to a large hexagon-shaped UFO that was seen during the day. At least, none that were publicly reported. But I was able to find a video from 2011 where a man claimed he was driving home at night just north of Panama City, when suddenly he encountered a large UFO in the sky. He was able to grab his video camera and film it for a few moments before the footage shuts off. The man claimed that the UFO somehow destroyed his camera, but the memory card was not damaged in the process. Some consider this the most compelling video footage they've seen, while others a complete hoax. If you would like to see this footage, I'll include the link in the show notes. Whether this was the exact craft that Jesse and his mom saw that day is hard to say. But as for the lights dancing in the night sky, that's a completely different story. Florida ranks number 2 with the most UFO reports in the United States. Panama Springs is certainly a hotspot for UFO activity, but the majority of the following reports cover the entire west coast of Florida.
Remember those lights in the sky last weekend, noticed by so many at Cape Coral's Coconut Festival? Well, it turns out folks in Florida weren't the only ones seeing the strange sight that most believe were UFOs. Calls came in from far and wide.
And you can see the light go.
This is the cell phone video another Cape Coral family is now showing us from that now famous Saturday night in the skies over southwest Florida.
It was bright red, and we saw about 15 of them going straight through the sky. I don't know what it was.
And the director of the National UFO Reporting Center in Washington State tells me by Skype, Cape Coral is not alone.
The reports that came to the National UFO Reporting Center on Saturday night, the 10th of November, were remarkable. They were stunning to me. I really don't think I fully understand the phenomenon that I'm dealing with.
He's compiled reports from across the United States, all from the same night.
Clusters of red, orange, or yellow, or amber fireballs.
The Repstock family was walking home from the Coconut Festival on this very same Cape Coral Road when they looked up to the sky and immediately knew they had to capture this on camera. I shared the UFO Center's reports with them, and they say those descriptions in other places matched exactly what they saw. Do you guys have chills right about now?
Yeah, I do.
Are you now believers?
It's going to have to get a little more solid than that for me to believe. I don't know.
I think that, it's a possibility. Like I said, I can't rule it out 100%, especially, after, the information that's been presented to me. It kind of seems like that's probably what it is.
If it is real, it is, in my opinion, probably the scientific question of greatest importance before the American people. Namely, are we alone or are we not?
It might be a plane or maybe even a helicopter, but one man says he believes he saw a UFO in our Florida skies.
They were kind of glowing and flickering a little bit.
It was Wednesday evening when Matt Krause and his wife looked up, but they didn't see the moon. Instead, they saw a single bright light. Then,
new lights appeared near it, and they got really, really bright at that point. And there were about 4 of them, and they kind of moved in different directions.
He snapped these pictures, saying whatever these are didn't make any sound and seemed to be hovering in place.
What I can't explain, though, is why they were so bright, why they were stationary one of them was stationary for 15 minutes.
So I asked RSW if anything abnormal was going on. They deferred us to the FAA. The FAA says we'd have to ask the military. Naples Airport Authority, however, says there wasn't anything out of the ordinary on radar that night, but noted it could be Chinese lanterns, which are illegal in city limits. Matt doesn't think so.
The random movement is kind of what convinced me that they weren't something like Chinese lanterns that were being blown by the wind.
Back on Naples Beach, suspicion was in the air.
I feel there's something out there.
Looks a little suspicious.
People's sightings of UFOs, it's usually some sort of military aircraft or something like that. I'd have to see it to believe it, physically be there to see it.
Could it really be something from outer space? One aviation expert says only 1% of sightings go unexplained, but he couldn't rule out the fact that what Matt saw could be from out of this world.
It could be a number of different things. How arrogant do we think we are that we're all by ourselves in this entire universe?
Atmospheric anomalies, drones, or covert military ops are other possibilities, but Pete thinks
that they probably are from outer space or from another location or a place that we are not aware of.
Many of these reports could possibly be explained as stars, satellites, or the occasional airplane. Whether they're near or far away, we typically know what these things look like in the night sky. They have a pattern, size, and even a color that we recognize and can rationally explain. But not all of these lights react within our understanding of physics or reality. So much has been seen that our government and military can't ignore the reality of the UFO phenomenon. Within recent years, our Congress has been forced to take this topic more seriously.
We're getting some new insight now about those congressional UFO or UAP hearings in Congress. Local Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is now sharing some reactions to what she heard, including evidence she has seen that defies explanation.
You know, Mark, for her, these hearings are ultimately matters of national security and government transparency. They're also wildly interesting, whether you're a believer or not. And she says based on what she has seen, there are things out there that defy our known capabilities.
The circumstances surrounding UAPs has captivated the attention of the American people for decades.
Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida was a central figure in the recent UFO hearings where 3 whistleblowers claimed the U.S. government knows a lot more than it's admitting when it comes to unidentified aerial phenomena, now called UAPs.
It does appear, and for what I'm seeing based on the stonewalling, that they are hiding something.
That secrecy, she says, is extremely problematic.
If these are programs that are being set up without congressional oversight and a responsibility responsible for, billions of dollars being lost that could be going towards other things, I think that that's something that absolutely is pertinent.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human. Among the extraordinary claims made during Thursday's hearing was that non-human biologics have been recovered from a crashed craft. While Representative Luna says she hasn't seen a UAP herself, she says she has laid eyes on other evidence ripped straight from a science fiction movie.
Based on the evidence that I have personally seen, the technology that exists is something that I don't think any government has currently. When I was at Eglin Air Force Base, I did see a photo, and I also talked to the pilots of something that is definitely not created by our Department of Defense.
She says she's working to get that photo declassified, and a whole lot more.
It's a huge national security issue, but also too, it's an issue of government transparency.
And she says there will be more hearings on the UFO topic. She says this is really the early stages of their congressional investigation, and she adds they have subpoena power and aren't afraid to use it. Mark, more to come on this. Back to you.
UFOs should no longer be a subject of ridicule because the facts are more evident than any time in our history. As I've said before, the more we talk about this phenomena, the more we'll understand. Photo and video evidence, along with countless reports from civilians and respected military personnel, continue to beg the question: are we truly alone? Before you go, I wanted to give a quick update and let you guys know that I'll be taking a short break. I usually release bi-weekly, but I'll be taking some time to address projects that are currently demanding more of my time. Now, I promise that I'll be back soon with more scary stories and also some really exciting news that I can't wait to share with you. And to all my Patreon subscribers, I really appreciate your continued support. And during this short break, I'll be logging on to Patreon to interact more with you guys. And I'll also be sharing some exclusive behind-the-scenes content with you there. So, all of that to say, thanks again for listening to Unnerved. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave a review wherever you get your podcast. And if you guys want to see photos related to each episode, be sure to follow our Instagram at UnnervedPodcast. And for ad-free episodes and bonus content, visit patreon.com/UnnervedPodcast. And until next time, take care.